And finally, we have not one but 3 compressed red belts worth of green chips at our disposal, as well as 1 red belt of steel, and the total iron and copper production in the main base freed up for other purposes. Our total iron and copper ore intake tripled. It went from 5 belts at the main base to about 15 belts with the new outpost included. That means our little outpost is processing about twice the iron and copper of the so-called main base. But anyway, this will be a great boost for both red and blue chips, as well as the base being able to sustain full speed science production now. Great things are to come. With these additions we are up to a gigawatt of power usage, and with the base being properly supplied with an endgame amount of resources, we can afford to start up the infinite science projects again. Now that we've injected the base with a massive amount of resources from our outpost, the main base has been thrown a little off balance. And while some parts of our base are already configured for this new endgame amount of resources, some parts are not, so to be able to take full advantage of the new tripled resource intake, we need to first solve a couple of bottlenecks. First, let's try to maximize red chip production. We now should have enough resources to set all red chip assemblers to work, but the input belts are not even saturated. So, as a quick fix, we plop down a couple requester chests and upgrade the first part of the belt to blue belts. The stack inserters will now fill in most gaps on the blue transport belts, and a little while later we indeed see all red chip assemblers are now working with plastics and green chips backing up at the end of the belt. With the heavy steel burden relieved from the main base's iron supply, now copper is the main bottleneck, as copper is still needed in large quantities for red chips and low density structures, among other things. Truth be told, our green steel outpost processes about twice as much iron as copper, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that the iron demand in the main base has strongly diminished. So I think we can safely repurpose one of the 3 iron smelter stacks to add a third belt of copper instead. Now, instead of awkwardly trying to route in the third copper belt, we again take advantage of the fact that in terms of throughput, 2 blue belts equal 3 red belts. This means we can just upgrade the entire copper line to blue belts all the way down the main bus with no loss of throughput. And indeed, copper is now even backing up at both belts down the low density structures. That's great! Or is it? In reality, it actually reveals our next bottleneck. An oil shortage. But before we dive into that, we first see the light. The blue light. And since our outpost produces 2 blue belts of green chips, we also upgrade the entire green chip belt at the main bus to blue belts. This now allows the full green chip production to travel down the main bus by belts, so we can get rid of these awkward requester chests. So yeah, the current problem is oil. We don't have enough petroleum gas to keep plastic production going. And while we certainly wouldn't have gotten to this point without our trusty coal liquefaction plant, at this stage of the game it just isn't enough anymore, even with the plant processing at its maximum capacity. We are going to need some real, actual oil to solve this problem, and unlike before, we actually have control over a few new oil fields now. So let's load up the spiders with building materials and let's go get the black gold flowing. So what is the best way to place those annoying pump jacks? Well, I don't know, but this is one way to do it. Once we connect the new oil field, we finally start to use more than just a single refinery in our oil processing setup. We are now producing 8 times as much oil per minute as we have been doing for the last 50 hours. But still, not all of the refineries are operational. So let's connect this oil source to the main base as well, that should do the trick. We went from 3 to 24k oil per minute with the first new oil source, and the second one now bumps our production up all the way to 40k. And next to that we still have the coal liquefaction. Together this should surely solve our oil problem. But we still want to prioritize the free infinite oil production from our original oil source and keep the richness of these new oil sources as high as possible for as long as possible. This is the main reason I use pipes here instead of trains. It makes it very simple to set up oil field priorities. With just a single green wire connected to a pump, we arrange that the second new oil field only chips in if the first new oil field fails to keep up with demand. And a similar green wire connection ensures our original infinite oil source is still being consumed with the highest priority. With the two new oil fields connected, our oil refinery is producing at maximum capacity, and with petroleum gas production now being much greater than consumption again, the plastic is flowing down both belts at full speed again. And with the new outposts and small optimizations to the main base, we are finally able to produce more than enough ingredients to keep all science assemblers operational at all times, producing that weird 84 science per minute figure. But anyway, this time we can actually sustain that production, so that means we can finally focus on what we've all been waiting for. We are ready to work on our weather manipulation machine. We are going to make it rain on this planet for the first time. And I'm not talking about water, but first we gotta make sure it can rain a little further from our walls. Each level of artillery range research gives 30% of cumulative range bonus, so by researching 2 levels we increase the range by 60%. Now, this may not sound like that much, but since the range bonus applies to the radius, the actual circular area of ground we can cover multiplies by 1.6 squared, or about 2.5 times. Finally, the OG copper mine has fully dried up, so we can complete our 20 by 20 square of artillery shell chests. Meanwhile, we have already stocked up over 9,000 shells! In that case, let's set up the artillery train. Let's start off with 20 wagons supported by 4 locomotives. Did you know locomotives don't need to be in front of the train to work? Let's put them in the middle, so we end up with a nice symmetric train with 10 artillery wagons on each straight, and the 4 locomotives can be refueled right here in the U-turn. Now, manually placing wagons around corners is a bit meh for correct spacing, so let's properly align the train by having it travel to the train stop automatically. Nice. Before we load the artillery shells on the train, let's add yet another square of 400 chests to the buffer. Artillery shell production must continue at all costs. While we wait, we take a look at the map and more mysterious markers morphed into existence. Our max? X plus 11? I wonder what that is all about. Anyway, it's time to fill up that artillery train. 25 shells are requested to each of the 4 requester chests per wagon. That's 100 shells waiting to be loaded, which happens to be the exact carrying capacity of the artillery wagon. Great! now we just light it up and copy paste it to the other 19 wagons and watch the bot scramble. While a single bot has no problem whatsoever carrying 4 nuclear reactors in a single flight, artillery shells are so heavy they need to be transported individually. I can't wait to see what kind of impact craters they are going to make. Anyway, that's one train loaded with 2000 artillery shells. But with 2000 shells per train load, we have only produced 6 or 7 trains worth of shells since we started production 8.5 hours ago. We need more production. And with the green steel outpost operational, I think we can afford to double production. Finally, mining productivity finishes, and we begin on researching increased artillery range. But right, before we can send the train, we first need to finish the rails. Our wall is interrupted by many lakes. For now, just a single thin strip of landfill which exactly fits the rails will do. And that's the north side connected. The east rail actually almost connects our base to the biter lands beyond our walls, but unlike Spidertron, the biter's stumpy legs are too short to step over the water. As landfill cannot be deconstructed, let's avoid laying rails through the nuclear reactor site and go around instead. We have to connect the rails back to the base somewhere anyway. Soon the first range upgrade is completed. Let's see the effect on the map. Nice! Now the second upgrade will add that range increase yet another time. Meanwhile, I have completed laying rails over all the lakes, which theoretically means the train should be able to calculate a path around the walls and back to the home station. Let's go for a quick test drive. Awesome, the train can draw the full path back to the reload station. Then we are ready. Let's start raining fire from the sky. Well, not quite yet. You see, artillery strikes causes giant bite the revenge attacks, far beyond anything we've experienced up to this point. Now, flamethrowers have a minimum range, so imagine if the biters breach the walls, then it still could all be over. We need a backup defense system just in case. So let's sprinkle some laser turrets all around the map. If a breach occurs, as a last defense, the laser turrets will still be able to fry the biters from up close. Soon we have sprinkled 1300 laser turrets around the map, drawing 31 megawatts even when idle. Still, in the grand scheme of things, that's nothing, and we have a 2 gigawatt buffer before we'd run into trouble. There's no need for accumulators this time. While we wait for artillery range 2 to complete, let's check in on our artillery shell production. Since we've doubled the artillery shell production, our explosive setups just can't keep up. We're producing only 800 per minute while we need 1100. So, unfortunately, we will have to cut out some forests to extend the explosive setups. It does take some extra work to make your designs nice and tileable, but it all pays off when you can just copy-paste to increase production. Now we've upped production to 1400 explosives per minute, which is more than the 1100 required for full-speed artillery shell production. Finally, artillery range 2 completes. It's hard to see the turret's range red border amidst all the red biter nests, but it's approximately right here. With all the visible and invisible biters present beyond the radar scan range, it may surprise you that this is actually all the range we will need on the artillery. All the secrets will be revealed soon, but first it is time to enjoy what we've all been waiting for. A nice montage of some good old artillery carnage. that's the first corner done. We lost 80 walls and 280 bots during this attack alone. The wall surely took a beating, but it still stands. But this is the easiest corner, as it is closest to our base, which means the bots were here fast enough to repair and replace the walls destroyed by the biters. Even so, the biters managed to occasionally breach the second layer of walls. It remains to be seen how well we will fare in the more remote corners of our base.